Okay, in today's lesson, guys, we're going to multiply complex numbers, and complex numbers are the a plus bi, where the real part is a and the imaginary part is bi. But before we do that, we're going to go back and we're going to look at the warm-up for today, okay? So in the warm-up for today, we're going to simplify negative square root of 80, okay? So, again, the negative 1 is going to stay out here, right? There's a negative 1 out there. Let's go ahead and factor this 80, y'all. We've been doing this for those of you that need it, okay? So 2 and 40, right? 2 and 20, 2 and 10, 2 and 5, right? Now remember, we talked about these pairs, okay? So we got a pair of 2's here, and we got a pair of 2's here. So what are those two 2's? So this is 4, right? And that's 4. So 4 times 4 is what? Yes, 16. So remember, we're going to take these numbers back underneath the radical, right? These two numbers. So I'm going to do it down here, y'all. So we're going to do that negative 1 out front. And then we're going to do the square root of negative 1 because it's a negative. Whoa. It wasn't negative, was it? Yeah. Check that out. So then we just got the square root of 16 and the square root of 5. So this is going to be negative 1 and the square root of 16 is 4. And then we got the square root of 5, right? So this is going to be negative 4 square root of 5. That was our answer. Now this one didn't have an I because we didn't have a negative underneath the radical. Y'all see that? It's just a positive number underneath the radical. Okay, so then this next one says find the product. So the key with this one is understanding that word product. That means multiplication, right? So we're going to do 2x plus 5. And we're going to multiply that times negative 3x minus 1. So a lot of different tools you can use here. You can use FOIL or box. I'm going to use FOIL this time. I'm going to multiply 2x. FOIL means first, outside, inside, last. First, outside, inside, last. Okay, so I'm going to multiply the first to the first. That's just right here. Then I'm going to multiply my outside. That's this. 2x times negative 1. Then I'm going to do my inside. That's the I. 5 times negative 3x. And then we're going to do last to last. So that was our inside right there. And then we've got our last to last. I'm going to do this in different color just so you guys can see it. So that's going to be 5 times negative 1. Negative 1. Now remember, inside outside are always going to be like terms. So we're just going to keep working simplifying this. This is going to be 2x times negative 3x. It's going to be negative 6x squared, right? 2x times negative 1, that's negative 2x. 5 times negative 3x is negative 15x. And then we've got 5 times negative 1, and that's minus 5. So here again, hopefully you see that these are like terms, so we've got to combine them. So our answer is going to be negative 6x squared minus 17x minus 5. So I'm going to erase this right here so we can see all of our answers. And it looks to me like our answer is indeed D. Okay? All right, so now our Friday ticket out the door. This was our Friday ticket out the door. And when I taught this, put all the real parts together and all the imaginary parts together. So our real parts are 12 and a minus 8, and then minus the 2 because we've got a minus in front of that parenthesis. We're going to add to that our real parts, right? I mean our imaginary parts. So we got our 5i, and we got a plus I, and then we got a minus 3i. Now some of y'all don't need those two minuses next to each other because you know when you see a minus, you know it's a plus. But I put them next to each other just to ensure that I remember to change it to a plus, okay? We got 12 minus 8 minus 2, so that's 12 minus 10. And you can do that, step it out, right? 12 minus 10, so that's 2. And then we got 5 plus I, so that's 6i, right? Plus 3i, which would be what? Plus 9i. So that was our answer. Okay? All right, so I'm going to remind you guys again that the Delta Math homework for the week was assigned last Thursday, 8/12, and it is due this Thursday on 8/19. It's due at 7 a.m. Okay? So today we're going to go over multiplying complex numbers, a plus bi. Okay? So you can multiply numbers by using the distributive property and treating the imaginary parts as like terms, okay? So our word here is like. We're dealing with like terms here, right? So by simplifying, you're going to simplify by using the fact that I squared is equal to -1. And I can assure you guys, by the end of the lesson today, you're going to know that I squared is equal to -1. Okay, so now I want you guys to remember that the rules of multiplying two binomials apply. So you can use the properties of FOIL to solve this, or you can use the box or area method, okay? So basically, if you're using FOIL, that means first, outside, inside, last, okay? So if we're going to do that, we're going to multiply our first terms, x times x. We're going to add to it the outside, which is here. So that's going to be x times -4 plus, and then we're going to do our inside, which is 2 times x, and then we're going to do last to last, okay? So that's it, plus 2 times -4. So this is going to be x squared plus, sorry, minus 4x, because that's what it would be, plus 2x minus 8. Now remember that these are always going to be like terms, the O and the I, okay? So this is going to be x squared minus 2x minus 8. That's using FOIL. Some of y'all are going to like that method better. And then we have the area method or the box method. Doesn't matter how you, what term you use for this, they're basically the same thing. So then we got 4x and a minus 2. Okay, so we're going to basically do it like this, okay? So 4x times 3x, that's 12x squared. 5 times 4, that's 20x. 3x times -2, that's -6x. 5 times -2, that's -10. So here again, when we do this box method, we've got these two terms, the diagonal, that are like terms. So we're going to do 12x squared. We're going to combine those. 20 minus 6 is 14x minus 10. So you guys can use whichever one of those methods you feel more comfortable with, okay? So, all right, so now we're going to work a couple problems together. So the first one is really just multiplying two terms together. So I'm going to do -5i times 6i, and hopefully you can see that the -5 times the 6 is -30, right? And that's going to be I squared, yes? So what we're going to do here is every time we see an I squared, we're going to change it to -1, okay? So I need y'all to watch me. This is -30 times -1. Again, anytime you see that I squared, we're going to change it to -1. So -30 times -1 is actually +30, isn't it? So I'm going to bring this to your attention over and over and over again today in these notes, okay? So here we go again. This time we're distributing the -2i to both terms. So on this one, I'm going to do -2i times 2, right? Plus, and I'm going to do the -2i times the -4i, okay? So -2i times 2, that's -4i. And when we do a negative times a negative, that's going to be a positive, so that's going to be positive 8i squared. Remember, when we multiply the I times the I, it's I squared, okay? So before, just a minute ago, I told y'all that when we have an I squared, we're going to change it every time to what? Yes, a -1. So this is going to be -4i plus 8 times -1. This is going to be -4i minus 8. Now, when we write our answers for these, we're always going to write them in standard form, which means we're going to put the real part first and the imaginary part second. So the answer to this one is going to be -8 minus 4i, because we're going to put the real part first and the imaginary part second, okay? So there's your answer. Actually, I'm going to do that because we're not going to see this down here, but y'all get the drift, okay? Let me fix it so just so you guys can see. It's 8. Okay. So next one. This one we're going to, again, you can use FOIL or the box method. So I'm going to use FOIL. So first times first, again, is 2 times 2. I'm going to do the outside, which is 2 times -9i. And then I'm going to do the inside, 9i times 2. And then I'm going to multiply the last times the last. So that's going to be plus 9i times a negative 9i. Sorry, that's not very legible, y'all, but we'll deal with it. So 2 times 2 is 4. Then we've got minus 18i plus 18i. And 9i times negative 9i is going to be minus 81i squared. Remember, we got I times I, so that's our I squared, okay? So let me see if I can make this a little clearer. 9i, okay? So, again, notice we've got some like terms here, okay? We've got some like terms right here, and they actually cancel each other out, don't they? So we are left with a 4. And then minus 81i squared. Remember, we're going to change that I squared, right? Anytime we see that I squared, we're going to change it to a negative 1. So this is going to be 4 minus 81 times a negative 1. So isn't that going to be 4 plus 81, y'all? So our answer is actually going to be 85. Got it? All right, now let's do letter D. So again, you can use the box method or FOIL. I'm going to show you the box method on this one. So I'm going to do the 3 plus 6i up here. Sorry, I'm just going to do 3 and 6i. I'm not going to do the plus. So let's just make a little space here. So I'm going to do 3 and I'm going to do 6i here. And I'm going to do 4 and minus I. And the key here is don't forget that minus. So here we go. We're going to use the box method for this one. So 4 times 3 is 12. 6i times 24, or times 4 is 24i. And we got 3 times negative I, so that's negative 3i. And then we got negative I times 6i, so this is going to be negative 6i squared, okay? So let me scroll down a little bit so we have a little more room to work. All right, so remember again, we've got our like terms here. Y'all see those? So we're going to combine those. So we've got 12 and 24 minus 3 is 21, right? So this is going to be plus 21i, and then we've got this minus 6i squared. So once again, what are we changing this I squared to, y'all? Yes, a negative 1. So we've got 12 plus 21i, and then minus 6 times a minus 1. Well, what is minus 6 times a minus 1? That's a plus 6, right? So we got 12 plus 21i plus 6. So do y'all see our like terms here? We got the 12 and the 6, so we're going to combine those. So this is going to be 18 plus 21i. Okay, our last one. So I don't want y'all to make a mistake here, okay? So I want you to really notice that this is squared. So what that really means is we've got 7 minus 9i times 7 minus 9i, okay? So again, we could use the box method or we can use FOIL. So I'm going to use the box method again. So I got 7 minus and minus 9i, and I got 7 and minus 9i here. So we got 7 times 7, 49. 7 times negative 9i, that's negative 63i. Again, negative 63i here. Notice it appears twice. Negative times a negative is positive, so this is going to be 81i squared. So once again, notice our like terms here, okay? So we've got 49 and a 63 minus, negative 63 minus 63 would be minus 126i. And then we've got plus 81i squared. Once again, remember, we're changing that, right, to a negative 1. So this is going to be 49 minus 126i plus 81 times a negative 1, right? So that's going to be minus 81, right? So that's going to be 49, and I could put them next to each other. That might help me. Minus 81 minus 126i. And then what does that equal? So I'll give you all a second. That's going to be negative 32. Let me get this out of our way. Minus 126i. Okay? And yeah. If you guys had the paper, that problem was different. So we changed it. Because number 1 and the last the last example were the same. Okay, so I'd like you guys to do these problems and then come back to me when you're done and check your answers. So here again, I'm going to rewrite this because I want you guys to remember how to do it. So it's going to be 3 plus 2i times 3 plus 2i. This will remind you that you got to either use FOIL or the box method. I'm going to use FOIL this time. So I'm going to use the first to first, 3 times 3. Okay. Plus outside 3 times 2i. Plus the inside 2i times 3. Plus 2i times 2i. One thing about the box, it takes up a little bit less space, right? So this is 9 plus 6i plus 6i plus 4i squared. So the 6i and 6i are going to combine, so we've got 9 plus 12i. And now I'm going to go ahead and change right now this to a negative 1. Y'all see that? That right there. Okay? So this is going to be plus 4 times negative 1. So that's going to end up being 9 minus 4 plus 12i, right? So my final answer is going to be 5 plus 12i. Okay. Yep. So on this next one, y'all, I'm going to use the box method because it takes up a little less space, okay? So I'm going to go negative 4 and minus 10i on the top, and I'm going to do 6 and negative 5i here. So that's negative 24, right? 6 times negative 10, that's negative 10i, that's negative 60i. Negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20i. And then negative times a negative is positive, so that's going to be 50i squared, right? Okay, so now we're going to do, remember, these are like terms, right? So we can combine them. So 20 minus 60 is going to be minus 40. So we got negative 24 minus 40i. And then we've got plus this 50i squared. Now remember, this 50i, the I squared is going to turn to a what? A negative 1, right? So this is going to be negative 24 minus 40i plus 50 times a negative 1. That's going to be a negative 50. So this is going to end up being negative 24 minus, negative 74, because we're going to subtract that, right? Y'all see, we're going to combine these two like terms right here, this and this, because it's going to end up, negative 50 minus 24 is negative 74. So that's going to be negative 74 minus 40i. Okay? Alright, so last problem over here. Again, this one's pretty easy, number 3. We're just going to use the distributive property, right? So we're going to do negative 6 times 8. That's negative 6 times 8. And then plus a negative 6 times a negative 2i. Okay, so that's going to be negative 48. And that's going to be positive because the negative times the negative is positive, plus 12i. That one was easy. That was nice. So we're going to do that again with number 4. Same thing, right? So we're going to do 6i times negative 3. Now, I know all of y'all don't need all these steps, but I'd rather err on the side of showing y'all all the steps than skipping some, okay, when I'm doing a video. Alright, so this is going to be what? Negative 18i. 6 times 7 is 42, and that's a negative because I have a negative in there, negative 42i squared. Remember, we're going to change that I squared to a what again? A negative 1. So this is going to be negative 18i minus 42 times a negative 1. So on this one, let's see if I can scroll down some. This is going to end up being a positive 42, right? So 42 minus 18i. And remember, I'm always putting the real part first. Okay, so now this time, let's look at this. We're going to multiply 5 times negative 5. So that's negative 25. And then I times I is I squared, right? Again, we're still changing that I squared to negative 1, so don't forget that, okay? So we're going to do negative 25 times negative 1. So our answer is actually 25. Okay? All right, last one. I'm going to use, what do I want to use? Let's use the box. No, let's use FOIL, y'all. So first to first, that's 6 times 6, right? 6 times 6 plus outside 6 times negative 4i, inside 4i times 6, and then our last to last is going to be 4i times negative 4i. All right, 6 times 6 is 36, right? Then we've got negative 24i. Then we got positive 24i. And then we got negative times a positive, so that's a negative 16, and I times I is I squared. Notice we got our I squared again. Also, notice now that we're going to cancel out these two because they're opposite terms, right? So we get 36 minus 16i squared. Remember, we're changing that I squared to a what? 36 minus 16 times a negative 1. A negative times a negative is a what, y'all? Positive, you're right. 36 plus 16, that is 52.